medium age, and 10% were children aged below 15 years. 98% had the non-HIV status, with 44.5 HIV co-infected. 90% were DSD cases, and 3% were confirmed. What I can say about these characteristics, they really mirror what is in routine programs. The majority of our clients are being male, young, with a high HIV co-infection rate in our region. The national average is about 30%. So the primary outcome was the treatment success rate. The treatment success rate, I tended to note that Professor did a bit of TP work as I prepared for this presentation. So I came across some TP work that you've done.
They only projected the slides.
So,
I mean the program.
I hope the online team is able to understand treatment success rate. But basically, the treatment success rate we compare, so we're looking at the outcomes of treatment. So when a cohort of TB patients starts treatment, we evaluate them 12 months later to understand how many successfully completed treatment. So those who have confirmed cure and those who complete treatment have actually succeeded. But those who are dead, those who follow up, that is an unsuccessful outcome. So
clients tended to choose the community models as they became more stable. The most common was the home delivery. Model switching happened only in 11%, so it shows most clients chose to stay on the same model that they started with. What about treatment dispensing? How was the dispensing during the different phases of treatment? So in the early intensive phase, there were still more bi-weekly and monthly refills. Despite the option of offering multi-month, we saw that still treatment was offered every 2 weeks for half of the patients, and monthly for 41%, and multi-month happened only in 8.8%. So more than 2 months of treatment happened in 8.8%. But in the continuation phase, monthly treatment was at 71%, and multi-month, almost a third of the clients. And the multi-month dispensing was comparable for both the facility-based as well as the community-based models. What about the quality of care indicator that was chosen by the evaluation team? So the standard of sputum follow-up is we do sputum follow-ups at the end of the 2nd month, the 5th and the 6th month of treatment. And what we saw that about half of all eligible clients had the 6 months follow-ups smear, with 44% having all of the 3 time points followed up. Now, the 6-month follow-up was comparable for community models as well as facility models. So there was no much difference in the follow-up for community and facility-based models, which is important because initially we were worried that if clients got sent to the community, they would miss some of these services. However, that was not seen in this pilot. And also, interestingly, clients on multi-month dispensing had higher sputum follow-up rates at 6 months compared to those that got shorter refills. So a brief discussion that was offered by the authors of this paper before we turn it over for the discussion of the team. The key findings are TB-DSD models were successfully piloted in Uganda, and treatment success improved compared to the pre-intervention years. So there was higher retention of clients and decreased loss to follow-up. And the key interventions to improve this treatment success was increased engagement of community volunteers. There were pre-appointment reminders. There were individualized follow-up plans for these clients and enhanced tracking of the client cohorts. So the authors also argued that this offered the person-centered approach, that this care approach was inclusive. It was not restricted only to stable clients, and the models allowed for flexibility. So for instance, clients could as well get longer refills within whichever model they were on, including the standard model. And home delivery was also valuable for the seeker clients at home. So the model use patterns, the authors noted a concentrated uptake of only a few models. So only the facility-based model for the facility-based individual management for the facility model, and home delivery for the community side were mostly utilized, meaning we had a number of models that were utilized minimally. We also noted some counterintuitive trends, whereby in the urban area, community models were more preferred. And in the rural areas, facility-based models were preferred. The hypothesis had been that in Kampala, for instance, since populations tend to be mobile, they don't have stable homes, they wouldn't have preferred home delivery. They should have preferred to come to the facility since they are very mobile, but we saw a reverse. Then community group models that are highly successful in HIV care, such as the community drug distribution points, as well as the retail pharmacy model, and the client-led act distribution, were actually difficult to implement for TB. And the authors thought because TB has fewer clients, so for instance, if you want to have a retail pharmacy distributing medicine, they may have very few clients to serve in that area. And also when they cure, then there may be no use for that pharmacy in that location. So they were difficult. These models are difficult to implement in TB. Also, the treatment duration is short. Plants might cure before when they have these models, and stigma and other privacy concerns were also cited as what would explain that. So model switching, we noted that only a few patients switched models, suggesting that probably these models met client expectations, but also the short treatment duration of 6 months may have reduced the need for switching. Because if a client is only going to be on this for 6 months, they might as well decide not to switch. Multi-month dispensing, about 25% of all the patients received MMD, and authors thought that staff reluctance to depart from the standard practice may have been the major explanation for this. Sometimes health workers tend to really not want to change some of these because they have concerns. But also authors thought drug stock challenges may have explained this. Then, but authors think that there's potential for this multi-month dispensing since the government is currently in the drive to offer shorter TB treatment regimens. So finally, limitations that were cited by the authors, there were no control sites. So the improvements could partly reflect secular trends in the TB services, either way. That was acknowledged. Then the historical cohorts only had aggregate data, so it was not possible to compare some variables at patient level data, and so controlling for confounders and other variables was difficult. It was also hard to isolate DSD effects from other programmatic interventions that were being implemented over the years. And this data was retrospective programmatic data, so there's incomplete data, and some outcomes were missing. Then also authors thought that this was only a few sites, 28 sites that were only in 2 regions. So there's a concern on how generalizable these findings will be beyond these facilities and regions. But also sustainability and cost-effectiveness was not assessed. And authors thought that it would be harder to scale these up if such sustainability and cost-effectiveness were not assessed. So this is the last slide. But since the pilot, what has happened is that the Ministry of Health has actually gone ahead, partly utilizing findings from this pilot, to adopt DSD models for TB care. This image is from the National TB and Leprosy Program Manual, the latest, which is from November last year. And it is showing how the TB program has gone ahead to give guidance on differentiating TB services using the approach that is being used by HIV services. And this work, IDI greatly was involved in these models and in the formalization of these models in the national and national TB and leprosy program guidelines. So in conclusion, DSD models were shown to be feasible. They show promise for sustaining or even improving TB outcomes while offering flexible person-centered care. However, authors think that the scale-up may require addressing stigma, drug stop challenges, exploring these models in drug-resistant TB, and exploring other outcomes beyond TB treatment success. So I'll stop here and turn it to the moderator. I don't know if there may be any questions from colleagues in the room and online as we move on. Thank you very much.
Very much. Do we have any comments, questions in the room and also online team?
Yes, I have a question. This is Dr. Paul Diego from Training Department. Thank you for this model. It's quite interesting. I noticed during the intensive phase that you had a number of patients who went for multi-month supply. And I find it a little clinically challenging because we know the reason we give 2 weeks is that these TB patients have a lot of challenges when it comes to drug side effects. These are very toxic drugs. And also, in my experience in the TB clinic, I noticed that they need a lot of counseling because of the challenges that comes with this drug. So, was there any proactive model or system you used to try and find out what was happening about these patients who were on the intensive phase? Or did we wait out? Because I know that sometimes patients get side effects and they will keep quiet, thinking, okay, that is it until it's too late. So was there any way of finding out what is
happening? Do you want to attempt or you want to switch?
Let's just get maybe one or two because we may not have. Yeah. The other comment I wanted to make, thank you, Benson, this was an implementation evaluation. And I would actually just comment that it would have benefited from a formal implementation framework. So I probably got that comment from someone. Reason being that there are some layers that we'll need to unpack, and the framework sort of gives you a structure that helps you unpack how and why and for whom this works. Well in a structured way, but that is another point for another day. Another utility I think we might want to consider is some deeper delve with some quantitative understanding to understand the whys, especially when you find those discrepancies that might not make sense. Those are just 2 comments.
Yes, I thought I would use the opportunity to make a short comment and pose a question for the leaders of our health system strengthening program. The comment is to applaud because we studied the demonstration IDI's intent to do our mission, support the health systems through research. I think it was good to see that the program translated. The question I have for Alexander, as you know, we have kind of a national level TB support the ministry TB program. I wonder if we leverage that position and partner way both of this work to have a structure scale. In fact, reflected what I was saying in terms of what can be. The authors noted the limitation for scaling. How can we, as a strong project organization, but also because we have the national reporting to help the ministry think about this.
Before this,
maybe he goes first. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for this. Yes, thank you for it, and thank you all. So I think you see why multi-month was difficult, because you can see Dr. Paul's concerns on adverse events and monitoring and trying to keep these patients as close as possible. And this was exactly the same concern of the health workers. And on that, what I can say is that, yes, we anticipated all this. And even before enrolling a client on these differentiated models, there was a lot of work done to health educate them. So there were materials developed and translated even in local languages, educating these clients on side effects, on the need for adherence, on these models. And plans were always put in place for each of the models, had plans on how adherence, side effect monitoring, and even monitoring the patient condition is going to be. For instance, in home delivery, I mentioned one which was called the monthly refill with the modified home delivery, where a health worker would go along the person delivering medicine to see this client at home. Then we also had closer follow-up on phone, keep in touch with these clients and intervene in case there were any issues. But the key on this was that drug dispensing, so drug distribution, could be decoupled from the care itself. So a client could have their medicine so that they keep taking it and they don't have these interruptions. However, and you know, in the COVID period, really having the medicine was one of the most important things that studies in HIV proved that. So having the medicines did not mean that now we are hands off. We'd still make phone calls, still have these clients visited, but still, as you have these concerns, health workers insisted that they are not comfortable sometimes doing that. So they wanted to give the client an earlier return appointment. Dr. Agri's comments are appreciated, and they sort of summarize literally what we have in the critical appraisal for this work, where the formal implementation evaluation outcomes, I think Proctor, I think there's authored by Proctor and colleagues, 2011, where they argue that in implementation science, looking at clinical outcomes, like we did in this paper, may miss a number of implementation metrics, feasibility, acceptability, and things like that, and fidelity, things like that. And yes, the qualitative evaluation would tie into that, because to answer some of those questions, feasibility, acceptability, you literally have to do some qualitative work. Yeah, so I think that was a big lesson for us to always, in the design, incorporate that. Then Dr. Andrews' questions to our leaders.
but I'm sure you have some opinions. But I think let me
yeah, have some opinion.
Let me just quickly say this, that first of all, when this model first came along, one of the challenges we had with DSD is many people felt that it should only be for very stable patients. So that the main reason that this was done and in that short time was to convince people that it is actually okay to give people TB treatment in a multi-month setting, and really to allow them the opportunity, because patients were still getting lost. Someone who is maybe not very sick may fail to come simply because of transport, and yet they could have continued with their TB treatment. So that is really the main reason this was done, more or less a little bit of non-inferiority, just to convince people that this is possible. And there are certain restrictions to the amount, to the type of money we receive, that sometimes don't allow us to go into the grant starts to look like a research grant and all of that, and then you struggle to get approvals. Sometimes we go ahead and do this kind of thing as you then look for other funding modalities. So you're welcome to come and do additional work. So in terms of the above site grant, so first of all, the above site grant, of course, sits in the same department, and the TB team that Benson leads in Massachusetts works very closely with Dr. Mary and the above site grant. So a lot of the work we do, including this work, is supported by the other grant as well. I think, first of all, the scale up, although they have indicated limitations, the pilot showed enough that they're actually okay with the scale up, with the main limitation being HR acceptance to move to DSD, and the stocks of either the TB drugs or the pyridoxine or any of the other things. So those being the main limitations, but not necessarily the other limitations that the study picked up. So they work closely, and the national program is already using the work, and scale up is going on. And actually, the art access model that is even supported by the academy is including a TB modality, so that even at the drug refill pharmacies, they're able to go and get TB drugs. So I'll say that these limitations have not completely blocked the scale up. It is just a couple of other things that need to be tweaked. Benson, would you?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Can we slip away?
I'd just like to say one thing. I think it's really impressive. The study has led to change in policy. So that's really impressive that you've done some, and I presume you're part of it.
Yeah, we're part of it.
So, I mean, it's very impressive that you recruited 1,864 patients and that you've evaluated them. Just a couple of comments about concern for follow-up in the implementation. One is drug resistance, and particular look at those who failed. Remember the clinic meeting you used to have here for the switch clinic. It was a really valuable process because it focused on those that didn't do well and allowed to assess that. One thing I just put for the future is, are you going to get counterfeit drugs coming in from other parts of the world? Question. Perhaps worth monitoring that at some stage. And I recall a study in South Africa that I was involved with at one stage, where they put the supervision on the local pharmacies in KwaZulu-Natal. And the local pharmacist, that was a trial of 2 times weekly treatment with rifabutin as part of the regimen. And the pharmacist, the local pharmacist, only had to check that the person had come in and got the medicine, the refills. But at least there was some adherence data collected by the pharmacist. Pharmacists liked it because the people came into the pharmacy more and they bought other things in the pharmacy. So there was some benefit. In the end, 2 times weekly treatment was probably not enough. But it's going to be a very important implementation to monitor. And I think other countries in the world will potentially follow on from this. So I think it's really important that you've gone from planning a study, multiple agencies involved, and now you've persuaded the government to implement it. Well done. Nicely presented too, by the way.
Yes. Thank you for accommodating us. You can continue. I see Joseph wanted to make a comment. By the way, Joseph is our head of statistics and research. Nice. Point you out this way the general world. And I know that there are some hands on mic, but if you can permit us to speak.
I think they can continue.
Yeah,
Then we are moving. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There is a Ahmed and Rotaro have questions.
Yes, continue.
Okay, so we have two hands up. I think Dr. Brian, your hand was up. You can unmute and give us your comment.
Thank you, Besson, for the presentation, and thank you also for playing part in this work that changed the policy. I have always wanted DSDs to be in TB, and I'm glad it's somewhere. But I have a few questions for you. Number one, you started out with 28 clinics. Then you only analyzed 21. What happened to the 7?
have staff on this campus. We have staff on the Makerere main campus. We have staff in the West Nile region in Karamoja. We have staff in Wakiso, Masaka, and we really wanted them to be part of this event. And when you see these microphones, that's really the reason. As I was saying, Penny and Keith, it's my pleasure on behalf of our senior leadership team to warmly welcome you to a campus that you know very well here in Mulago, both from a personal but also from a professional reason. Yes, it deserves a hand clap. Over the weekend, I was drawn to a video where a techpreneur, they are called techpreneurs, entrepreneurs in technology, was talking to students at Stanford. This particular techpreneur is an alumnus of Stanford. And in fact, he is the chairman and CEO of NVIDIA, which, as we talk today, is the most valuable company in the world. I think what drew me to the video is that it was recorded in 2012. And I think at that time, no one had a clue that he would be met with this wild success that he has. In the video, what struck me is that even though that was 2012, and he didn't have the level of success he now has, the company, NVIDIA, had been in existence since 1993. So he still had about 20 years of company history. So what struck me in the video, he was telling these young people that it's very difficult to establish an organization, even before you talk about success. And that thought, I thought I would carry it to this morning, because as we looked forward to your visit, I shared 3 insights with my colleagues through an email to say that we really look forward to your visit, because one, you have really shaped what has become the DNA of IDI. I don't say that lightly, because as a younger doctor, I had the opportunity to really see this firsthand. I remember a very specific statement that Keith made in one meeting, but which he consistently used to say. And this statement was, the people we are called to serve, our friends, we should stop seeing them as a problem, but part of the solution. And I think that statement has stayed with me over the years. So you have given us a great DNA as an organization. I think the value of care is something that is imprinted within us. And I hope that already you've begun to see a glimpse of it as we walk around, even for the rest of the day. The second thing I shared with my colleagues is that you lent your considerable gravitas as an academic and your networks to a young institution being established here at Makerere. You fully exploited your networks, and we are glad to tell you that 20 years later, I think that IDI is a leading center of innovation and relevance within Makerere. And I think the role you played at the takeoff was really indispensable. I think finally, and I think it's relevant for the leaders in this room who we shall introduce shortly, I continue to marvel at how you assembled a world-class senior management team, attracting people from Hopkins, from Germany, and not just on the program side, on the finance and administration side, on the strategic planning. And I usually am looking at Paul because I always use the opportunity to be part of staff orientation. And sometimes I tell them about my first senior management team, which you chair in the room, and how that experience was intimidating on that first SMT, simply because of the personalities who are in the room and the value and quality they brought to the institute. And so I hope today you will be able to see how this team has built on that foundation, and I hope that that will give you a lot of gratification for the investments that you made while you're here. So thank you very much. I am now going to introduce the members of our senior leadership team, after which we'll have breakfast, and then after which we will share with you through some slides some of the work we are doing, again with a view of saying thank you, but also I think giving account. We think you're an important stakeholder in the Institute, and it's important for you to see how things have been going. So, in terms of the introductions, I will start with the Mulago campus because we are being hosted by our colleagues in Mulago. So the PCT team is Agre, as head of department, and Noella. And many of you know that I have roots in PCT, so it's very nice to it's not random that the PCT team has been introduced first. The research team, we have Barbara as head of department. We have Dr. Stephen Okoboy, who is not here. So Keith, your visit somehow coincided with students returning to school. So some of our colleagues are on parental duty and are not here. So Stephen is one of them. On this campus, we also have our laboratory services team that includes the core lab. And it's led by Bernard Bagaya, who's not here, but Bosco is here as the head, as the administrative director of the core lab, and a very familiar face to you. I believe I've exhausted the Mulago team. Yes. So let me cross over to the Makino Knowledge Center campus on the main campus. Let me start with the health system strengthening team, led by Alex as the head of department and Joanita as the deputy. I think you remember, well, people will get to talk about their areas of work, so let me not preempt any discussion. I think there's a program that you will be introduced to. I don't think you left it, even the health system strengthening team perhaps. We have a global health security team that helps us with outbreak response, and you'll hear about this work. It's headed by Dr. Francis Kakoza. Francis is deputized by Dethan Bionavie, who like Stephen, is on parental duty, but I hope maybe in the course of the day, I don't know, you'll get a chance to meet that team. We have one of our historical, the original 3 programs at Makino, and currently it's headed by Dr. Paul Boyego. And Paul, thank you for joining the Journal Club. It's always nice to have training in the Journal Club. I'm going to switch to the support departments. I hope I'm not, yeah, before I move. Yes, the support departments. The finance team is headed by Susan and deputized by Millie. And then let me introduce the information services team headed by Richard. And then we have strategic planning and development headed by Tom and Sylvan Kaboha, who's here. Tom has tried to call me. I couldn't take his call. He's probably waiting to receive us when we cross over. I think he's keeping the fort there because all of us are here. But you know Tom very well. I'm introducing Paul last. I hope he knows why. But we created a standalone human resources department, and that's headed by Paul. And okay. It's really been a pleasure, Keith, to serve with my colleagues. The team culture here is very strong, and I suspect it has to do with what we observed in the earlier SMT. And also, teamwork is one of our core values. And I have been very privileged to work with this team. And we have something called OneIDI, where we recognize that even though we are running the different programs are leading specific things, in the end, we are one institution pursuing a common mission and vision. Before we do the overview, we will pick something to eat. You know, change our postures a bit. And then we'll sit down and be happy to tell you a few things about the work. So thank you for your attention, and let's get something to eat.
Hello, hello, hello. Our online audience, we kindly request that you don't go off. We're coming back shortly. If you can grab a cup of coffee, it is okay.
Using clinical outcomes, because these actually are a process along achieving the clinical outcomes. So that was not done for this study, and it's a strong recommendation for people planning and implementation studies. Then evaluation approach goes straight to the weakness. I thought comparing aggregate historical data would not isolate any
I can have your attention. Winfred, let's close that back door, if we can. So, colleagues, as I mentioned, we're going to transition into a working breakfast where we have the opportunity as a senior leadership team to interact with Keith and Penny. I'll show some initial slides to set the stage, and then I'll be inviting each head of program to talk about the program. Now, do I have a clicker or how do I do it? Should I stand here? Let me use this. Okay. So Keith, we missed you at the 20-year celebration, but we now have this opportunity to tell you a bit about where we are as an institution. I recall fondly your contribution to our vision and mission, which have largely remained the same. We envisage Africa free from the burden of infectious diseases. Also, you're very familiar that we have elected for the impact of our work to focus on the health system. If we fix it through research and capacity building, then we will have done the work. I will not dwell on this map on this slide because there's a map on the subsequent slide. But want to highlight the 6 program areas in which we are working. I always talk about the original 3 programs, and you remember we used to talk about the 3 cooking stones: PCT, research, and training. Well, we've made that a hexagon now with 3 additional programs. The health system strengthening program, the global health security program, and the lab services program. Each of these programs has a story, and you're really intimately aware of the initial 3. For health system strengthening, I want to say that I think it was during Alex's tenure where he really said we have to get out of the ivory tower, we have to get out of Kampala. And I think I hear, because I was not there were voices saying, what is the university doing so deep down in the community? We're a university, and what are we doing there? But I think we are all grateful that this bold step was taken to take IDI to where the action is. And if you ask me what is one of the strengths of the Institute, it is having one leg in academia, in research and innovation, but having the other leg in the community, understanding what the problems are and implementing some of the solutions directly. So we've highlighted some of the numbers in the different programs, and you will get to hear to some detail, so I won't dwell on the scope. I think what I wanted to highlight to you is that we've expanded beyond the 3 original programs into 6 program areas. And this slide talks about that expansion. So in Uganda, the question of how many districts do you have was a difficult one to answer because there was a multiplication of districts. So it mattered when the question was asked. But at the time of the map, I think Uganda had upward of 100 districts. I think what's notable is that through one of those programs I highlighted, we are present in almost 92% of the country. Whether it's TB or HIV or global health security or research. And for me, when I say that IDI is one of the leading innovations within the university, it is because we are also out there understanding problems and bringing the strength of the university to address them. You will get to hear that we've proactively built global partnerships, building on the foundation you laid. And this is also across research programs, global health security, and increasingly we are also seeing opportunities for health system strengthening as well as lab strengthening. So this means that IDI's Africa-wide mandate and the vision of freeing Africa from the burden of infectious diseases is being actualized. So currently we are in 23 African countries, and a lot of this is now happening because of our credentials in global health security. These are numbers out of our most recent integrated report, and we'll have an opportunity to present one to you. In terms of the cumulative patients that we are now responsible for. So you can see from the regional PCT numbers through our health system strengthening program, we are now responsible for almost 10% of the national HIV burden in terms of oversight. I think that's a good number and a good proportion to be proud of. We continue to have impact in the healthcare worker HRH world, as you can see the training numbers, the number of publications. Some of these are displayed on the board and are now detailed in our integrated reports. We have programs looking at empowerment of young women, because we know that economic disempowerment is part of their vulnerability to HIV. And also showing what we are doing in terms of research training through master's and PhD programs. I want to highlight the amount of resources we are able to raise each year, most of it through competitive grants. And that number is upward of $60 million per year. And $60 million a year. And I dare say, you know, looking at how this has evolved, that it comes down to building systems, one of which is the team, our strategic planning and development team that is responsible for, and I wanted to let my senior management team that I think hiring Dr. Richard Prof to IDI, I think that was a critical fork in the road in terms of our resource mobilization. I think something you should take credit for.
One interesting thing about that
yes.
was that I used to look at the Lancet as the best journal, and I learned that the Economist was important.
Okay.
He was recruited through the Economist.
You had to put an advert there. Okay, great. Well, you see now, you have to thank me for eliciting that history. Yeah. I think one of the things I wanted to highlight, again, building on the foundation you laid, is insisting on a strategic document for IDI and setting that whole thing up. So one of the things we have always been proud of is that all our efforts are mediated through a strategic plan. It brings focus. It also means that we're not merely opportunistic when there are opportunities to do work. It also helps us to say no in a polite way if something falls out of the scope of what we should be doing. And I learned that at a very early age, that I could use the strategic plan for people not to take my no personally. So I would say statements like, I love doing this, but I honestly can't do it. So our current strategic plan has four focal areas, and these will be echoed in the presentations that you'll hear. The first one recognizes that we have walked a certain journey and picked the low-hanging fruit, and we can't now just have generalized interventions. So now we recognize that we have got to focus on integration of services, but also on priority populations. So for example, for HIV, we focus on these young women because they have vulnerabilities. For TB, we think about the urban poor because they're vulnerable in terms of TB. And integration means, as you manage their TB, you also screen them for non-communicable diseases and that kind of approach. So this is a pillar in our strategy, and a lot of our grants and a lot of our opportunities we're seeking focus on this. The second area is around health products. And I think this point was driven home by the COVID-19 experience, that Africa in general is lagging behind when it comes to products. And as it happened in COVID-19, many African countries found themselves at the back of the line in terms of product access, whether it was a diagnostic or a therapeutic. And so as an institute, we feel as part of academia and innovation, we should be able to do some value addition for products, either through clinical trials, field evaluations, and those kind of things. So this is now a very intentional part of our strategy to add to the product value chain. You will be pleased to note, and I hope you're excited when we get to visit our data science center, that IDI within Makerere and possibly within Uganda and the region is a real catalyst for the use of data science in this environment. And in 2019, we inaugurated a center at the Knowledge Center, where you'll get to see we are training masters, PhDs, but also have a compute resource that can enable people to run large data sets, which requires a very specific resource. This investment is continually validated by developments in AI and machine learning. And so it's something we are very proud of and which we look for every opportunity to exploit. Finally, the fourth strand is around technology in health. And here we've leveraged the work we've been doing through the academy, which again, you'll get to visit. So the pillars on top focus on our external activities, but we also recognize that there are things we should be doing internally along talent management, knowledge management, strengthening management systems, and also sustainability and governance. So you will get to hear some of this in the program presentations. And I think before I invite subsequent speakers, I want to emphasize that the team culture has been critical for our success, and it's been a real privilege serving with this senior management team across these things. Okay, so we're going to transition to the core programs, and that will break the monotony of hearing from just me. So who's first up? Research. Did you hear that gasp?
I checked the slides, but I didn't realize I wasn't responding. Thank you. So I hope I'm not going to spend a lot of time. So I have two slides, and the two slides I really want to show mainly the evolution of the research program from the beginning up to where we are now. So we kind of divided it in periods that, depending on what was happening and also who was at that time the head of department. I want to say one thing, and I always say this. I'm really that kind of person that stands on the shoulders of giants, because all my previous head of departments really laid the foundation for the work that has been now. We really had international head of department that came and helped us to build this capacity. So in the first years, and I've been here since 2004, so in some capacity I've been part of all these phases. So initially, as you know, really the capacity building that was done, especially in the Mulago campus, was for really training staff, both I would say in clinical, because many people didn't know how to use the antiretroviral treatment because it has just come, but also to prepare this site to be somehow a clinical trial site, and we also had the first scholar. So we were mainly receiving protocols that were already approved, for example, the DART study, and then staff was just trained to carry out a clinical trial. So after 2008, I think there was really more capacity that was built for purely research, although still a lot of dependence in a way that all these grants and opportunities were really coming from outside. We built the data fax system. We started the translational lab. This really with all the help of external and international collaborators. As I said, the grants were led by partners, and then we started the first group of scholars, and these were really the Nelson Sewan Campus Scholarship that was at that time sponsored by Gilead. And some of these scholars are actually now having leading positions within McAdam University and beyond, because some moved even to other universities. So let's move next era, 2013 and 18 is what we call as the research program to be more on the way of independence. So we started having capacity building grants that were actually written in within, like the D43. And so we had more and more scholars and trainees, especially PhD and master students from McAdam University, so enrolled in McAdam University, but mentored at IDI. At that point, I think most of the grants were really co-led, so we would have typically an external partner writing with us a grant, and I'm talking really like clinical trials and real research projects. We also started, I would say at that time, to build some systems, especially in the area of digitalization. RISE is our regulatory system that we use at IDI. It is electronic and automatic and tracks all the regulatory approvals and protocols. And we also starting really building system like SOPs for research, the research policy, SOPs on how to write grants. And so really starting, like I would say, standing more on our legs, and have more research that was really led by within. That would really consolidated in the time 2018-2023, where we said we can really say at this point we really reach independence, which doesn't mean that we are doing things alone without partners, but many times we are the one leading, for example, writing a research proposal, and they are the ones that are looking for external partners to actually write with us. Through our D43, so through the people we have trained before, we now have a very big pool of local mentors and senior scientists that can train the PhD and the master scholars that we support. So again, this doesn't mean that we don't link them with maybe some external collaborators, but we know we can actually do that. We know we can actually mentor people at the level of PhD. Our statistical capacity, I think, has also greatly increased. The unit can really do a lot of independent analysis, and we always give it as an example. There are clinical trials that were multi-site and published in distinguished journals like The Lancet, The New England, and the statistician for these trials was Joseph Musazi, so from our statistical unit. Yeah, I think he deserves a clap, Joseph. He's not in the room, he's always very shy, but he's really a great statistician. And so I really think generally, IDI can also lead grants like R1. I mentioned because R1 is one of the most difficult type of grant to get from the NIH, and there was a point, I think, in 2020. Well, right now we actually have 3 that are led at IDI. Usually we always be one of the sub-grantees for R1's grants, but now really we have scientists that can write and obtain their R1. Now, finally, I think we reach a point where again we call the interdependence, which is really that they are also actually, what we are seeing is that there are actually international partners that depend on us, because more and more calls these days, research calls, they need to be started actually from the institution that is in the resource limited setting. And so we have more and more people reaching out to us to kind of lead and include them in their research. And so I think we really reached the point where we have more partners reaching out. Within IDI, we have cross-cutting research groups in some thematic areas. I can think, for example, antimicrobial resistance. We can think about CSF infections, STIs, research in older people with HIV, and all of that. And also we actually have a point of having what we call second generation mentors. So some of the mentors we have now are people that we, not other people, we at IDI have mentors, and now actually are also able to mentor other people. So we have now reached the point of really cascading down mentorship from international to local and now to second generation. This is a very crowded slide, so I'm not going to read it. But because I really was asked to look at somehow the evolution, I really try to see really how we moved in these different areas in the various areas where we do research. What are the new things that we've been doing or actually adding along? So down at the bottom you find our support services, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but what I wanted to highlight here, especially for our guests, is that in 2020 we were able to register our own ethics committee, the IDI REC. So now we have our independent committee that is accredited by National Council, which means that all of our research projects can actually go through the IDI REC, and we try to have the ethics committee as efficient as possible. Of course, we try to give excellent scientific and ethical review, but also with efficiency. And we also get people from outside actually using our committee. Now, I just wanted to pick maybe a couple of these research teams and show how they evolved, just to give a flavor of this. The one I always like is the cohorts. First of all, because I lead the cohorts, but second, because I think that actually they show the evolution of what our antiretroviral treatment programs have done really in the country, because what happens at IDI is also in the country. So probably Keith remembers that we had a cohort when he was here, which were really looking at short-term outcomes and mortality, because that was really the problem we had in 2004 and 2005. We were putting people on ART, but because they were very sick, we had also issues of iris, people were really not doing well in the first 6 months. So our original cohort of 500 patients, we lost 100 in the first 6 months because of mortality, of early mortality. And so we were really interested in looking like why people dying once you put them on ART. Of course, because they were too sick, you know, at that time. So what we saw is that the ones that survived there, they made it up to 10 years, most of them, you know. After that critical period, people made it up to 10 years. So at that time, we started another cohort, and we started tracking. We had 1,000 patients where we tracked their outcomes between the 10th and the 20th year on ART. And we just finished actually that group, following up that group. And so what we saw, of course, is that we don't see so many opportunistic infections anymore. It's really rare. But of course, we start seeing all sorts of other complications, so cardiovascular diseases and mainly cardiovascular diseases, diabetes as well. In that group, 25% of the people have hypertension, for example, and so they are on treatment for hypertension. In the meantime, we also observed that we have a lot of people in this clinic that are over 60. And when I say a lot, they're really a lot. I think the over 60 are around 1,500. So it's a big number. No, maybe around 1,000. And then we have the group that has survived. So now we are actually about to start next week, actually, a new cohort that is going to look at outcomes over the next 10 years. So we will look at people that have been like from 20 to 30 years on ART, and we are actually only picking the ones that are over 50 because we are also interested in looking at the aging issues. We have done some work here with geriatric medicine, and we found that geriatric syndrome are extremely common. I think my time is almost up. I don't know if I can pick another example, but I doubt. I'm looking at Andrew. I think my 2 minutes are up, right? Yeah. So yes. So no, you can have really. What I wanted to show is that every single team has really moved from more observational and maybe epidemiological studies in the space of lab science, translational science, diagnostics, and clinical trials.
30 seconds for, I know people will be interested. What's the justification for another IRB on this campus?
Okay, so one justification was that the IRBs on this campus, they are really overwhelmed with students' work. So when it comes time that the students that have submitted for us to go and submit, for example, our clinical trial, you are going down to be in a queue of like 100 student proposals. The other thing is that communication with some of the recs is not very good, and you know, they're very slow for us. And when you're doing a clinical trial, you need really quick reviews on certain things. And so it was really timing and efficiencies. And we asked, just to say, before setting this up, we went and asked the university if they were fine with us opening another rec. So we got their blessing. It's fine because we recognize we are overwhelmed with students. To be honest, some of the professors of McAdam, when they have their own research, they come to our rec. They don't go to theirs. So, thank you. It's mine, no? No, okay, I didn't send. This is the HIV prevention research. There is no one from Kasangati. Yes, but it's not my slide. Didn't prepare. It's my first time to see it. So, but I can say something. Yes. So this is from our Kasangati. Kasangati has become now a prevention center under research. The leader of that center is Dr. Andrew Mujugira, and really, again, initially it was really main clinical trials that were kind of brought from outside, but right now, really, all the grants are really led by Andrew and his team, and so they do randomized trials, implementation science, observational study, and qualitative research. They are looking at, I would say, mostly really key populations. So adolescent girls and young women, serodiscordant couples, that is a work that is really historical. It started during the early days. They've now expanded to refugees, then sex workers and their clients, pregnant women and their partner, and then there is also MSM and transgender people research. So they are really looking into prevention, into key populations or population at risk. So mainly when we are talking about prevention, it is really a lot of PrEP research and how to deliver PrEP to all these different groups. So you can see that PrEP is really done in all these populations through different trials. And then you can see that all the collaborators that they have, University of Washington again is really historical, but they've really expanded to other partners. Please don't ask me questions on Kazangati. Oh, it's still Kazangati. Yes. But I think it's the same. No, I think that I actually look at two plant studies that are very important. Again, one is a single dose HIV PEP, and then the HPV and HIV prevention integration. So I think these are just two studies that are coming up, really.
As we transition to the next slide, if we are putting up, we have put up infrastructure on the island.
Yes.
Victoria, through this scheme, which has not happened in Nairobi. I think we're the first research partner.
I think it's for the single dose. It's for that study, yes. No, this is not mine.
Right, so HHS was initially outreach department, and of course the concept of outreach services started when Keith was still here on 2005 when we were working with the KCCA clinics. You remember the Wednesday clinics that would have with the sub-grant that was under MJAP from 2005 to 2009. So we've tried to, to depict our journey over the past 20 years. Of course, the first 5 years we were initially under PCT when we were doing KCCA clinics where Dr. Andrew was head of PCT. That's 2005 to 2007 before we took on the project outside Kampala. And we've also tried to show how the partnerships we've built over the years have increased both in terms of numbers but also in terms of monies that have been shown in another slides. So 2005 to 2010 we were principally doing HIV testing and counseling and treatment with HIV, and we were initially a sub-program under PCT, and then in 2008, we took on the first project outside of Kampala, which was the Chibale Chivoga project that took us to the districts of Chibale and Chivoga, where I moved on from the clinic, where I was senior medical officer initially, and then program manager for Kampala, and then moved to Chibale Chivoga when in 2008 up to 2010. In 2008-2010, we were placed under a strategic planning and development program, which Richard Bruff was heading then. And it's in 2010 that we became a standalone department, which was outreach department, that then later rebranded to health system strengthening department, which we use right now. So from 2011 to 2015, our scope increased to take on slightly more comprehensive HIV work and TB. In 2011, we also got an opportunity through CDC to try our waters in the field of voluntary medical circumcision, when the trial showed that circumcision was, provided a preventive effect in HIV. We were also given monies through CDC, but also through ERMA, to wade into maternal and child health work, initially under the Saving Mothers Giving Life project, which we ran from 2012 to 2018, and then through the ERMA initially newborn and pediatric HIV, which we ran also up to 2018. So our journey then moved out of Kampala to Chibale Chiboga, initially Chibale Chiboga, but with each year we were asked to take on some additional geographical scope and program scope. Those of you remember the history of our work. Initially the work was, split into technical areas. There was an implementing partner for EMTCT, if you remember, who no longer exists. There was someone doing HIV, until the funders decided that we needed now to give all the work, a comprehensive work, to one partner. And that's how we expanded from Chibale Chiboga to what we then called expanded Chibale Chiboga. The two districts became about 8 districts. And then around the same time, a call came up and we were asked now to scale up our work to the West Nile region, another 12 districts. So we're now in Kampala, West Nile, Midwest. I think that is the largest geographical scope we had at that time. About 8 districts in Midwestern Uganda, 12 districts in West Nile, Kampala, Wakiso, and at that time, I think in terms of money, IDI had the largest scope with about, Susan, you can correct me, about $45 million a year in our programming work, but also about 1 in 3 HIV people in Uganda under our program, which is what really made us the largest implementing partner. From 2010, we became the comprehensive HIV partner for Kampala, and then that also expanded in 2015 to Kampala, Wakiso. That's where our numbers grew up to about 250,000 between Kampala, Wakiso, between Midwestern Uganda, and between West Nile, who are taking care of about 1 in 3 HIV positive people in Uganda. The numbers, shift a bit because of rationalization issues, but from 2016-2020, we expanded our work to include PrEP, DREAMS, TB control, and some above-site activities to do with priority populations, including work with most at-risk populations like MSMs. And then over the last 5 years, 2020-25, our partnerships have grown now to the current about 97, and this includes districts, includes sub-partners like IDI who do work in Wakiso, in Kampala, in the several areas where we are the prime implementing partner. Because what the funder does is that currently we are the implementing partner in Wakiso and Masaka. That's about 12 districts, including the whole of Lake Victoria Islands, which are 84, with about 65 of them inhabited. But within there are centers of excellence like Mardme, like Tasso, and so it's IDI which now provides them sub-grants to implement the work that they do within their centers of excellence clinics, which were set up already. So we've now included work to do with PrEP, DREAMS, what Dr. Kamgo was talking about, girls who are at risk, who are vulnerable, but we need to make sure that their vulnerabilities do not expose them to more HIV work. We've been given a mandate to do national work with the most at-risk populations under the civil society grant. We run with the Department of State now programs to do with above-site TB, national TB work for complicated TB, including MDR TB, using a technical assistance scope. And like I said, our coverage now includes Kampala for the former USAID programs, the whole of Wakiso, which is the largest, probably the largest district in Uganda in terms of patient numbers and population-wise, The Greater Masaka region has about 11, 12 districts, including Lake Victoria. The whole of West Nile region, 12 districts and city. We do work in Midwestern Uganda to do with orphans and vulnerable children. And we do work in Karamoja, the whole of Karamoja region, about 9 districts to do with TB. So that's how we've grown from an initial 3 districts, 3 partnerships where we were a sub-partner to MJAP when you were here 20 years ago, to current 97 partners, including 44 districts that we work with, and looking over a population of about 220,000 HIV positive clients. The graph really shows where we are in terms of, just to refresh you on the map of Uganda, which I'm sure you know about. But the Midwestern region is the one, rather the West Nile region is the one to the west of the River Nile, on the borders with Congo. So it's our work that we've been there for 10 years now, from 2016 up to the present. We are in the final year of a second 5-year term. But starting next month, we've also been told that we'll continue for an extra year as the US government sorts out how it wants to manage the work going forward. So by the end of next year, would have been there for 11 years. So the comprehensive HIV programs are the TB HIV programs, the Masaka Wakiso that is funded by US Centers for Disease Control, the West Nile program funded by CDC. We have programs that we've called catalytic programs to HIV TB. So these include the CSO program that targets HIV high-risk populations. We have the OVC interregion activity that targets orphans and vulnerable children. We have what we call above-site TB work that looks at MDR TB, both across several regional referral hospitals in Uganda and Karamoja region, and it's also now under the Department of State. And then over the past 1 year, we've acquired what we call a service integration and sustainability grant, who came in to cushion the effects of the funding cuts from the US government earlier this year. And that is by the Elma Philanthropies, which now does supportive work in the regions where we work. So largely, the HSS program now continues to provide a platform and works in a OneIDI fashion to provide a platform for training, a platform for research, a number of the research programs, whether in KCC or in Wakiso or in West Nile. I think Barbara talked about refugees work that is happening in the research program in West Nile. The platform is provided by HSS, and we work in a OneIDI fashion, and sometimes in a one funder fashion like the US government. The Global Health Security Program, again, across the regions where we work, have layered on programs to support the interventions for which they are funded. And then training also uses the HSS program as a source, as a revenue stream, but also as a platform for training the trainees that they take on as a department. And again, the models of care that we have worked through over the years, similar to the one we had this morning for TB DSD, have been rolled out, and some translated into policy. We were the pioneers in showing that private pharmacies can be a drug delivery point and decongest clinics like we used to do here in the clinic. And those have been taken on by the Ministry of Health and rolled out. And so we continue to work with the Ministry of Health and the district local governments to make sure that those continue to serve. Again, finally, our health system strengthening work uses the WHO building blocks, and part of that is infrastructure improvements. So across the country where we've worked, we have strengthened infrastructure in district local governments, in regional referral hospitals, But that infrastructure that just doesn't support HIV/TB work. It supports the whole health system within the clinics. If you now with the integration, it even becomes more practical. What used to be HIV clinics are now used as immunization clinics. The labs that have been renovated support the entire spectrum of diagnostics at facilities, and we are proud that the system strengthened will continue to provide those services long after we are out of the work of the business that we've been doing by working ourselves out of business through the successes. So thank you. I hope at some time when you are back, you'll be able to visit one of these. Thank you.
So thank you so much. The IDI Pioneer Executive Director, Professor Keith McAdam, and the dear wife, Penny. Our current Executive Director, Dr. Andrew D. Kambugu. The senior management team with whom I gladly serve with here, and all other esteemed members who are joining here and online, good morning. My name is Francis Kakoza, and I serve as the head of the Global Health Security Department. In this department, I serve with my colleague, Dr. Dathan Bionanembe, who is unable to join us in flesh because of parental duties this morning. I am very glad to share with you, Keith and Penny, about the Global Health Security Program. But before I dive into the presentation, I have a short story to share. And this story is to appreciate the vision and the meticulous effort that was put in to set up IDI. Why I share that is that I was telling a colleague I've served on senior management for about 4.5 years now. But what stands out very vividly is that a lot of the ideas and a lot of innovations that we come up with are anchored on a very strong platform. And if you have an eagle eye, you can clearly visualize that these were ideas imprinted from the onset. And I'm going to share with you 3 quick issues to validate this. One is around an agenda that Andrew talked about, the regionalization. Our efforts to expand our wings beyond the Ugandan footprint. A deconceptualization of the entire idea, after back and forth discussions with the ED and senior management, I had an opportunity to share my thoughts with Nelson, whom I know you know very well. And when I had a quick chat with Nelson, Nelson referred me to the placard where you had a photo moment with Andrew this morning. He told me, if you're keen enough, look at that placard, because that placard clearly mentions that the building was never offered to Uganda. This building was offered to the people of Africa. It is clear and it's well written. So what that tells you is that the vision we're trying to aspire as an institute and as senior management was not birthed now. It's an idea that the forefathers of the institute had, and that's thanks to you. The second one is about the Global Health Security Program. The Global Health Security Program's mission is to support ministries of health in Africa to prevent, detect, and respond to public health threats. In 2017, as part of the review of our strategic plan, a bold decision was made by the management, presented to the board, to revise our strategic focus from not only focusing on HIV and co-infections to broadly looking at infectious diseases. As you will see in my slides, our focus now looks at the other public health threats that are destabilizing lives and livelihoods broadly. So one could think, is it a bold step by only management? Yes. But is it anchored on a strong foundation? Yes. Because by the nature of the way the name was crafted, was not an HIV institute. It was an Infectious Diseases Institute. So even as you reframe to expand the scope and the strategy, you can see that it falls squarely within what you started. So I start with that story to really appreciate your thought, your vision, your investment in the African population, but most importantly, coming back home with your wife to see what we are doing. So for that, we are very grateful. So the Global Health Security Program is one of the hexagon pieces, as alluded by Andrew. And as you know, it's a broad space that has 19 thematic areas. But as part of us being very point focused, we keenly selected 7 program areas, call them thematic themes, with which we thought they are well aligned to the vision, but also they can help us to impact the real lives as our motto goes. So the first one is around antimicrobial resistance. And this goes without saying. We're increasingly seeing a lot of mortality, a lot of morbidity attributed to antimicrobial resistance. And the big question is, as an institute, as IDI, what can we do to contribute to this space of AMR? The second is around laboratory biosafety and biosecurity. And a lot of our work here focuses on strengthening public health labs with giving them the capacity to be able to detect filoviruses. And a lot of our work has focused on expanding the PEPFAR platform, which originally focused on hematology and clinical chemistry, and adding on microbiology and virology, including advanced diagnostics in fertile-rich areas. The third is on epidemic intelligence and surveillance. And as I was mentioning, our big focus around detect, prevent, detect, and respond, we're also adding a piece of predict. And here in the prediction, we look at our thematic area as the eagle eyes of the public health space. How can you be able to forecast and understand what burden do you envisage, and how can you put the systems in place? We work closely with emergency operation centers, and these are the centers that work on behalf of the ministry to monitor any signals that can trigger a response in the national program. The fourth is case management, infection prevention and control. And building off a very strong PCT program, we have invested a lot into healthcare workforce and skilling of teams that can be deployed during outbreaks. And I think worth sharing with you, we have had teams deployed in Kigali, Rwanda, towards the end of last year to respond to the Marburg outbreak. We have had teams deployed to DRC at the peak of the Mpox response to support, and we have had teams deployed across the country during different outbreaks, including the current Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever outbreak that is happening in Nakasongola. The next is on vaccines and medical countermeasures. And here, as mentioned, one could have a good understanding on the entire paradigm shift of HIV management. How do you screen? How do you confirm? How do you manage? How do you switch treatment? It is not the same case with viral hemorrhagic fevers per se, or with septicemia per se. And here we are investing in a lot of research, a lot of innovation into medical countermeasures that include vaccines. We have supported rolling out new antigens like for Ebola. We are working with Gavi to do the live course vaccination program across the country. We have validated new point of care tests that can also pick up dangerous pathogens like Marburg, like Ebola, and the list goes on. The last two is on planetary health and WASH. Planetary health is on the bedrock of One Health, environment health, human health, and the animal health because of the spillage that happens across. But also adding the aspect of WASH. Yes, water, sanitation, and hygiene. And finally, on health policy, economics, and advocacy. Global health security leads a lot of investment into the structures, the systems, and the policies. So, your visit, Keith, is coinciding with the GHS celebrations of 10 years in existence. And a part of me thinks this was well orchestrated to be in tandem with our celebrations. It's been such a journey that started in 2015. And Keith, at this moment, allow me to also mention that Andrew, who doesn't really like me saying this a lot, was the lead writer of the first proposal that went in for the global health security, which alludes to the good investment and also the good transition that has happened thereafter, of course, with the broader team. So in 2015, we had the first global health security project. We scaled into surveillance of acute febrile illness, biosafety and biosecurity, and also investing into AMR surveillance. In 2017, we received funding from the Department of Defense in the US to go into doing research during outbreaks. We responded to our first outbreak as IDI supporting ministry, and this was Marburg, and also supported the ministry in the joint external evaluation, a process that evaluates the capacities of preparedness and response in the country. In 2018, we scaled up AMR surveillance into One Health, looking at wastewater and looking at zoonotic diseases. We received funding from the UK for the Fleming Fund Country Grant. We supported the country develop a national action plan for health security. And also we took a bold decision to support the country respond to the Ebola outbreak in Kasese. In 2019, we moved into research in AMR, which was mainly to understand the drivers of antimicrobial resistance. And this included a lot of molecular epidemiology work. We received funding to do mentorship work in Tanzania, which was one of our steps to start doing work beyond the Ugandan borders. We also supported with evaluation of new point of care tests that are currently being rolled out by the Ministry of Health. And at this time, they were due for FDA approval, looking at a broad range of pathogens. In 2020, we were at the helm of responding to the COVID-19. And my predecessor was the chair of the case management pillar, which was overseeing the management of all the patients and supervisory aspects of COVID-19 in the country. We built capacity for outbreak response, including a lot of IPC mentorship across the facility, working closely with Paul and the training department. And we also scaled up into the One Health AMR surveillance programs. In 2021, we started moving into vaccination space, starting with COVID-19, supported with what we call the regionalization of global health security by setting up emergency operation centers in the different regions in the country. We supported accreditation of the National Public Health Reference Lab, and this was accreditation by College of American Pathologists, and thanks to the lab services team with whom we worked very closely, and also supported the government move from the paradigm, what was the paradigm arrangement of HIV focused into the broader integrated case management. In 2022, we moved into a partnership with the Africa Centers for Disease Control, which is an Africa Union public agency and a program of saving lives and livelihoods, where we did a lot of evaluation studies on the impact of the pandemic on the healthcare system, moved into rolling out immunization work, and now starting a partnership on a global health security workforce development in Africa, working with the HR team and the training team. We also scaled up to evaluate new WHO models like 717, a monitoring matrix, which helps you to measure the time between preparedness and response. In 2023, we moved into the life course vaccination program, working closely with Gavi and the expanded program for immunization. We moved into WASH, and we just submitted a proposal that we are hopeful to go into primary health care WASH infrastructure, which we think will be a good way to avert a lot of waterborne disease outbreaks. We also moved into responding to outbreaks like cholera. And in a key development for the Institute, we supported the country review the National Public Health Act, which was not reviewed for the past 37 years into the current act that we have. Finally, we have stretched our wings into the African continent. As I speak, we are present in 23 African countries, mainly supporting national action plans for health security, disease surveillance and data infrastructure, and strengthening immunization programs. As I mentioned, we're also keen to support with the rollout of new antigens for vaccines, including the malaria vaccine and the Ebola. And 2025, just in time for your visit, there are 4 key developments. We have managed to receive funding under Tackling Deadly Diseases in Africa program, a program that has helped us to consolidate our space in the African continent, but also do an above-site role in technical assistance for global health security. Barbara highlighted the Scholars program, and I'm happy to inform you that through internal resources now, we have revived this program to focus on global health security, and it will be launched next month, termed as the Sewa Nkambo Global Health Security Training Program in Africa, that will focus on GHS scientists. We have worked with Africa CDC on an mpox research, and this research is mainly focused on social behavioral aspects on the continent, but also epidemiological, where we are supporting the Central Africa region to conduct research using generic protocols. And as I speak right now, I have 2 of my teams in Central Africa Republic that are helping with this. And finally, as you've been following, there is a WHO pandemic treaty discussions, which include discussions around pathogen and benefits agreement. And the IDI team has been key and supporting with the legal aspects to the Honorable Minister of Health in this engagement. With that, it gives me great pleasure to share about GHS, and once again welcome you back home and wish you a very fruitful visit. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it is still morning, and I hope it's morning for everyone. I want also to add my voice to the previous speakers to welcome Professor Keith McAdam and your dear wife, Penny. You are most welcome. I want to keep the protocol observed and go straight to the point. I was joking with Richard, and he was asking me, what am I going to tell you here? Because for us, we are practical men. Our practice is in the lab. Why don't I just walk the professor into the lab and I show you these instruments? But I told him there is one thing that I wanted to remind the professor. We prepared this. I know Dr. Andrew will give him the presentation, but one thing that might not be here is that, Professor, when you were here, I think the lab was already there, but there was no building IDI. It's the point I wanted to start with. I remember when we were still up there, still under module, IDI used to bring the work, laboratory work for testing. And they were always from, I remember they were always from Ward 4 or 4B. So when we would give them the results, they would tell us, for us, we have nowhere to keep the results. So we agreed with them to create a pocket in the lab at the cancer, to create a pocket where we would keep these results. Why am I bringing this? Is just to appreciate the work that you did for IDI. We have come from a long way, keeping those results until IDI built this building. And we want to thank you for those initial ideas that brought all this work together. The other thing that I might forget to tell you is that those days when you used to come to the lab, you used to come and at that time the lab was not for IDI. It was belonging to John Hopkins University. Right now as you come, the lab belongs to IDI. If you wish, you can clap the second time and I'll tell you. Yes, the lab now belongs to IDI. And we want to thank you still. You're showing us inside. This is now the problem. Richard has spoiled me. Everything he has to come and support me. Yes. At that time, the lab was producing those accurate diagnostic services then. And I want to assure you that up to today, we are even producing more accurate diagnostic services. So all I'm telling you is that we are still producing the good work that we used to produce then is the good work even better that we are producing now. When you left at that time, Richard, it wasn't here. Yes. The lab was CAP accredited at that time by the CAP, College of American Pathologists. And at the moment, just last month, we were audited, the lab was inspected, and we are going to be recertified for the 21st years or 21 years of CAP accreditation. And still, just to give you the history, that at that time, we were just the second accredited lab in Africa. The first lab to be accredited in Africa was in South Africa. Then IDI Core Lab became the second accredited. In Uganda, we were the first. We were the first to be accredited. We have mentored other labs to be accredited by CAP. We have now about 6 of them, IDI Core Lab inclusive, in the country. And it's because we pioneered and we have mentored other labs to be accredited. So I do not want to waste a lot of time. Those days, we want to thank you that those days, your time, we had a lot of equipment. We had a lot of freezers. For 20 years, we don't want to blame you, but for 20 years, now we have replaced those freezers, those equipment. What you see here, what we wanted to show you here are the new modern equipment that we have at the moment. The first up there. Oh, thank you very much. Sorry, Richard, you have to come again. Eh? Yeah. So I wanted to show you that those are evidence of the certificates of CAP that we've been getting all along since you left. Then we have these instruments, the one I said, the modern equipment, that as I said earlier on, we are a practical team. You'll be seeing them practically. A couple of minutes from now, we'll take you through the lab to show you some of this. I know you may not have time, but we'll do it very fast. So I'm not sure whether I give the, yes. Yes, so some of these instruments are for, some are freezer storage, some are STI. There are some clinical trials that we have supported. At the time when you were here, we had supported about 90 clinical trials. At the moment, we are at 128 clinical trials that we have supported from that time to this time. And then one of the instruments there is for the STI group. The ones down, where we have the physical freezers, the mechanical freezers, we also now have the liquid nitrogen freezers that I will be showing you after here. We also have the mass spec or the PK lab that we currently yes, just a few equipment that you do not, that were not there at the time, that we'll be showing you in a couple of minutes. These are the same instruments, like that equipment there is for viral load, HIV viral load, HIV DNA PCR, hepatitis B virus, and hepatitis B viral load, A, B, and C viral loads, and also HPV that we use this instrument for detecting. So thank you very much. We'll be taking you for a tour with the ED's permission that we'll be showing you this live. Thank you so much.
Yes. It's still a good morning. Our guest of honor, Professor McAdam, and the wife. I think I'll also start with a story. I learned from my mentor, Eke. And now I'm glad to know that he also has a mentor, and I see where it's coming from. Very interesting, yes. So I think I first interacted with IDI around 2005 as a medical student. And for those of you who have been through medical school, when it comes to training, you know what happens. Dr. Agre. It's really tough. The training system is kind of different. And I had the chance to rotate through IDI, and I think, Professor, you were the ED. And the training experience I got, it was a little bit friendly, different from the usual experience at medical school. And I knew that one day I would want to come and work with IDI. And I'm glad that, Eke, you brought me into IDI. So thank you so much, Professor, for setting that foundation. And I'm grateful that today I lead the training department. So to delve into the training department today, I've also learned the analogy from Andrew, the 3 cooking stones. Training was one of them. That is beautiful. So under the training department, we have sections. The first section is the training itself. And here we have quite a number of experts, specifically the curricular developers and the trainers. And we are glad to know that from the time 2004, when you really gave birth to training department, we now feel we are teenagers. And these are the reasons why we feel so. To date, we have developed over 53 curricula and delivered almost all those courses out there. And on average, the number of trainings we deliver is about 51. If you are to think critically about that, you realize that almost every week there's a training going on. You can imagine how much the team is doing, and that is because of you. So thank you so much. The average number of trainees per course per year is about 99. So we are doing a lot of capacity building and remembering the slogan. Exactly. So, and the number of participants we have, real trainees we have followed up is over 1,100 that we have developed, followed up directly. So in that section, that's what exactly we have been doing, and makes us feel teenagers, not yet there as adults. So looking back in 2004, you started what you call the AIDS Treatment and Information Center. I'm not sure whether you recall that. That is a toll-free call center. Yes, so if you look at it critically, it was a model of training, different from the classroom, the usual classroom, where you are building capacity for health workers who are new to the HIV drugs. And I must say that that system worked so well that we have built onto it, and the AIDS and Treatment Information Center has evolved into the Learning and Innovation Center, where we really look at how we deliver our trainings. And we are basically looking at cost-effective models, models that are scalable, models that reach out to quite a number of people. And looking at the call center itself, we receive about over 2,000 queries every year. And we have evolved away from just only patients, even patients call through, and we link them up to health facilities. So the model is still working and it is evolving. And still we added the newsletter. So far we have about over 30 newsletters. We have gone to mobile technologies. These are very critical. They help us to identify gaps amongst our health workers. We have, for example, the interactive SMSs, where we know exactly what gaps are in our health workers, so that we fill those gaps, especially through our newsletters. We have the interactive voice recordings, the IVR, and we have used this to train VHTs and other lower cadre health workers, and we feel it is a good system for them. We have evolved to the virtual learning environment, and with this one we have over 11,000 active accounts, and we have issued over, I think now it's about 3,000 certificates to health workers. And some of these individuals are outside, some of them are actually out of Uganda. So we have about 120 countries accessing our website. So this is quite incredible. And also we have moved on to the virtual learning communities to beef up the VLE. And we also piloted the virtual reality for training here in Uganda, and I think we did it fast. And right now we are looking at first aid and other trainings through virtual reality. So what I want to tell you about this is that as other people are now going into online learning, for us at IDI now we are realizing that no individual platform is a silver bullet. So we have now coined what we have called a Penta Synergy training model that looks at all 5 platforms working synergistically to ensure that trainees get what is needed. And hopefully we shall still be in the lead when it comes to Uganda online training. So these graphs show exactly what I've been talking about, so I will skip that. And then highlight a few of the impact that we have. And we shall start with that project, the DAP, which was funded by the DoD. And this has been used as a role model by the DoD, because they have really been funding different militaries in Africa. And what we did with the DAP, that is supporting the UPDF in Uganda, we had other military officials coming to Uganda to really benchmark from this. So that has been a very beautiful success. And then also ministry has adapted some of our curricula that we have developed, over 5. They are now national, and we feel we are proud to talk about something like that. As Francis said, we have really supported a ministry in training, health workers across Uganda. We supported in Mpox, Ebola, and lots of other outbreaks. We have also collaborations with the universities. The students you left like me still come through IDI. We have IU, another university in Uganda, and also collaborated with the University of Minnesota on the East African Tropical Medicine course. Yes, in a nutshell, I think Bosco has talked about the accreditation. We have supported the UPDF to have their first accredited lab being recognized by Ministry of Health. And we think that is also quite an impact for us to talk about. So thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. Prof. McAdam and Mama, you're welcome. You're welcome to PCT. And today I realized that PCT is an African mother. PCT has given birth to GHS, HSS, takes care of training and the lab, as well as, who did I forget? You know, as African mother, sometimes you have to research. Oh my God, we take care of our biggest kid, research. And we have persisted and maintained this vision, which we coined out of the IDI vision, which is to really, as we think about getting rid of the burden of infectious diseases, we want to be the premier holistic care provider for infectious diseases. And that, of course, involves multidisciplinary prevention, care, and treatment, and that we have maintained. And that platform, of course, should support our children, training, research, and capacity building, including program, HSS. I consider PCT the lab to test everything before it goes out. And so as the food goes out, to test it in the kitchen. We have maintained care, prevention, and treatment. I'll start with prevention, which has evolved. At the beginning, it was ABC. It has moved on. Of course, we add on all the other commodities for prevention, but right now is multifaceted to include PrEP, PEP, and most importantly, MTCT, mother-to-child transmission. It's interesting that our location for post-exposure prophylaxis is critical, because on a random day, you'll find a surgeon walking through the corridors. He says, I've just had a finger prick, I need my PEP. In fact, there's a day we were closing and the surgeon walked in from the, I think, was it dental? ENT. Straight from theater with these scrubs, like, I need my... And so it's important that we maintain our place. Mother-to-child transmission is one of those Noella talks about. When did we last have a positive child? Over 5 years ago. So while I mention only HIV and TB, we want to make sure we expand to the other infectious diseases, including, Mpox, STIs, and the rest. At the bottom, I show you that little table just to as an exemplar of how important it is to do testing. You find those who are positive and you link them. While we think testing is really identification, testing is prevention in of itself. That when someone shows up for testing, it's an opportunity to communicate prevention and encourage prevention, and also provide prevention while you're risk profiling. So, okay, is this progressing or not? Good. So here then when we get our friends who are unwell, we have to take care of them. Our cumulative figure of people we have taken care of in this clinic is somewhere around 35,000. But right now we are not taking care of 35,000. As the years have gone by, we've had to transition a lot of those who are stable to, as you were hearing the story, to the KCCA clinics. And right now we are taking care of around 3,800. And most of those are on first line, about a fifth are on second line, and a small number on third line. But we are happy to note that 99% are virally suppressed. And of course, I've talked about the zero mother-to-child transmission. But right now, we have transitioned to an NCD-dominant HIV care setting, which speaks a bit into the new world where we have to talk about integration of care and services. So 30% of our patients have hypertension, and they do need treatment, and 7% have diabetes. One of the NCDs that we kind of forget, and I keep placing it up there, is mental illness and mental challenges, including substance use, which has a high impact on HIV care outcomes. So these are challenges for us to work on in our day and time, because while it was important to give you ART, right now it's to keep you on ART and for you to take it well. So we've, in trying to make sure we are responding adequately, we initially managed patients with specialists, though right now we are challenged because of the changing funding landscape, but that is something we cannot divorce ourselves from, because comprehensive care demands that we provide also the NCD care. What has happened also is that we have partnered with our colleagues who provide cardiovascular, renal, mental health services, and we are creatively thinking about workarounds. For instance, with obstetricians, we are screening for cervical cancer, and we are moving towards getting our nurses to test and treat, which is the current modus operandi for cervical cancer, pre-cervical cancer management. If we find you with a benign lesion that can be treated, we can actually treat you with thermocoagulation. We cannot offer this care and treatment without counseling and psychosocial support, so we have maintained that, though if I'm to say, with the mainstream pre- and post-test support, adherence, bereavement and the rest, but we would want to expand this also to include NCD care. Last but not least, we maintain our vibrant engagement with I want to change it from JIPA to greater involvement of persons living with HIV. And this community of colleagues, through music, dance, and drama, do provide also peer support counseling. We engage them in adherence counseling, home visits, social support. And in fact, I was telling Francis, they can also talk about Ebola, they can also talk about Mpox, they can also talk about AMR. We engage them across the board, across IDI. I think that's a snapshot of PCT. I think we can talk more. Thank you. Okay, yeah, this is my child. I'm going to just talk a bit about the journey that the Academy, which was birthed through PCT, started around 2014, and has moved, from over the last 10 years through various milestones, mostly involving innovations that are going to enhance care. First, they were built within the PCT sort of space to Call for Life. I know the text may be small, but in 2016, you see the Call for Life supporting reminders and adherence. Then Art Access in 2017, which was focusing a lot on us monitoring treatment when patients, using electronic systems, when patients do not come back. So that is about when patients go to the pharmacy model, for instance, how do we monitor their care? And then fast forward, there's been a lot of innovations around the drones in 2019, and these are being used for delivering medical, for drugs and ART. And also, I'm told recently we even have a newer drone for this particular purpose, and this is in the islands. I'm not going to go far, but right now the team is engaging new diagnostics like the Rumira DX, I think that's from AFIS, and also using, for instance, art access in PrEP and art access in NCD. So we are adapting the innovations that have been created for different use cases across the spectrum. And in terms of impact, those are the numbers. I won't dig into them, but I'll leave them to you to digest. I'll hand this over to SPDT.
Oh, good morning. Professor Keith and your dear wife, the head of department is not here, so I'll stand in for him. You'll find him at MKC this afternoon. So this is just a snapshot of the journey in terms of the projects we manage, as well as the resources and the sub-awardees from the period, I think, 2005 to this year. So you can see a sharp curve from about 10 to over 160. So SPDT manages or supports the strategic planning process and monitors it. Then it supports the business development, which is resource mobilization, works with the teams to bring in or to look for grants that can be supported. And then we don't do this work alone. Sometimes we work with other partners who we sub-grant to. So we not only have partners in Uganda, but in about another 16 to 20 countries. So we sub-grant both through GHS projects as well as HSS, the academy, not PCT. Okay, so sub-granting is this, so something is missing in the last one. So yeah, okay. So I'll go to the next one. This is also another small snapshot of the diversification process of our funding portfolio, where we heavily relied on federal awards from the US, but we are consistently reducing that reliance. Thank you.
Which of these are affected by the new elephant in the room?
So the one.
Trumpeting.
Because I see 2023. Is the Trump effect reflected?
So no, not in this slide. Yeah.
But I think what Susan wanted to show, if you look at the light blue,
the blue, so
how it has changed from 2018 to present. Show that. Okay. Silvan, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to take back the time that Sylvan saved. Professor Keith and Penny, you're very welcome. I stand on the existing protocol and also recognize the team that is online. If I use the analogy of the 3 cooking stones, you'll need fire to cook, right? And so with your foresight, you are able to see that the economist was very important, and you hired Art Mooney, who set a very strong foundation. And that's the foundation that we continue to build other blocks. And if I use PCT's analogy of African mother, there's a great grandmother that takes care of everyone, and that's F&A. F&A has given birth to so many support departments, but also those departments have given birth. You heard that HSS came from SPDT. So the great-grandmother analogy is not out of the blue. In 2004, I joined IDI. And the custom at the time was, if you were new staff, you had to go and greet the executive director. Andrew, you said you were very nervous on your first SMT. That was my nervous time. As an accounts assistant, I walk into that room and I think to myself, what am I going to tell a professor? I haven't even completed my education. I was shaking, but I don't know whether he noticed that. But by the time I walked out, I was all smiles and relaxed. And that's the environment that has continued to this day. So in your time, 2005 was the first time our accounts were audited as an institute, and the first clean accounts were issued in your time. So thank you again for the foresight and the strong foundation. Following on, you left 3 clean audited accounts, and we continue to build and maintain that. To this date, we have clean accounts, and I'm confident that even the current financials that are being audited are going to come out clean. We have no worries of that. And so our budget currently averages $64 million from the $4 million that was at 2005. Yes, and we expect to close the year at $68 million. Those numbers are not yet audited, but I don't expect a major change from that. It's quite ironic, with the Trump effect, we shot up. And we expect to see that change in the current financial year. That drop will come in and subsequent years. To date, we've supported over 400 facilities through our programs across the country. These include the labs in terms of solar installation, security, and providing any technical support they need in those facilities. And that's done with the F&A team. At the time, we're just about 11 F&A team, but now we are 113 in the department. We have over 56 offices across the country that we are directly responsible for to ensure that it's conducive for work. And we have over 150 projects that are active across the different programs. So again, great-grandma is taking care of quite a number of children. While in 2005 we had 3 cars, that's the bus, the van, and the Pajero. We have, now we have over 84, I don't know the make, but I know including the hybrid, electric cars, yes, and a boat and over 310 motorbikes.
I have to clarify that the boat is not for executive.
Oh, it's for programming on the islands, the 86.
I noticed the pineapples are very good these days. From the islands.
Yeah. So the F&A department provides leadership in coordinating our sustainability efforts to ensure that we do not negatively impact the environment. We work within the acceptable framework and contribute to the SDGs. And so we lead that effort, working together with the teams across the departments. And to serve our clients better, we adopted a model that is referred to as the business partnership model. where we tag support teams to the different programs to understand the programs, tailor solutions that will enable them excel in their work. So in a nutshell, that is F&A. This is not F&A, but it's a critical piece of governance that was again birthed out of F&A and directly reports to the executive director and the board audit committee. It strengthened our systems because of its independence. It's not involved in the day-to-day. So this is the policeman that checks, is everyone doing the right thing? So they've helped us consolidate our risk governance systems into a framework that is now premised on the 3700, the ISO 3700, and also helps management on a day-to-day strengthen the internal control environment. So this is some of the work that, this is the impact of what they've done. It's a team of 9 currently. And as I mentioned, this report directly to the executive director. I'll leave this for you to digest as the next speaker comes in. Thanks.
We'll also have a chance to see some of the environmental efforts, the solar panels that the F&A team have spearheaded. Okay, our people. The team that takes care of us.
My apologies. Good morning, Professor McAdam and your wife, Penny. And I'll ride on the existing protocol. My name is Paul Rumanda Rugambwa, and I'm privileged and honored to serve as the head of HR at IDI. The inaugural, as Dr. Kambugu has put it. I must say the journey in IDI for me has been slightly over 3 years, so coming to 4 years, and it has been an entirely exciting journey, full of challenges, positive challenges, but above all, the opportunity to make a difference. Before you is just a slide that shows our numbers from 2023 to 2025. And obviously we've grown 50%, and we had almost hit the 4,000 mark. And that was courtesy of our colleagues in health strengthening systems with the numbers from the Masakawa Kiso project, which was about equivalent of the numbers IDI had at the time. We took on 2,000. Very briefly, we as a department acknowledge the fact that IDI systems and structures led to the recognition of HR as its own department. But most importantly is we worked on the foundation set by F&A and the executive at the time, of which I'm informed you had an influential part in, and I can see that today. We were recognized in 2022, and together with management at the time, we were able to transition from a gratuity scheme into a provident fund scheme, which secures retirement for our staff and our people in form of an interest. We also rolled out our HR business partnering model, and to appreciate this is when I joined, the department was highly specialized, and we had talent acquisition, learning and development, performance management, and each and every individual was very independent of the other. With the HRBP model, we have been able to actually improve our efficiencies and our service delivery to the organization. We also had our OHSE unit and recruited our inaugural OHSE and safeguarding manager in December of the same year. And among other things is we took on social media in order to attract and retain talent. HR worldwide has evolved, and talent has become the core currency in every organization. And this must be attested to the leadership of IDI and the board in recognizing HR as a department. We also would like to note that our staff well-being has become core, and post-COVID, we noticed mental health and psychosocial support is very key. And in 2023, April 2023, we actually took on an EAP provider who to date has supported us, both our staff and their immediate family. And I must attest with the events of January 2025, this has been core in keeping us afloat. Together with the support of IS, we have digitalized our systems, and this has made us more efficient and focal. And we had the applicant tracking system, and we had the integration of our human resource information systems. Richard, clap for yourself. We also took a journey. We also recognized that the organization had organically grown into the 6 programs and 4 support departments. So we started in July 2023 to revisit our organizational structure and look at whether it's the structure that will lead us into the future. This was a key milestone at the celebrations of IDI at 20 as well. And we started this journey, and throughout that journey, as a collective effort of SMT and my colleagues in the room and those absent, we've had some ideas in how to merge some departments, how to create efficiencies, and how to review our size as SMT amongst many. But these have been put on hold following the events that unfolded after the Trump administration came in. We also recognize the importance of swift recruitment, and in 2023 we also appreciated that contracting was one of our downfalls, and we improved our digital, we started digital sign-offs of contracts, and this has improved on our ability to have our project staff in on time so that we can support and the deliverables that our staff do have. In 2024, one of our key milestones there was reviewing our HR policy and aligning it with the change in the legal requirements. We launched our staff wellness program, and in form of leadership development and pipeline, we also had our inaugural management toolkit training for our succession plans. This was targeted to our middle managers. And then we also rolled out HR clinics for employee engagement. To date, 2025, we have appreciated that learning transcends the classroom, just like our colleagues in training attributed to, and have taken on, in addition to all other initiatives, Udemy for Learning. And we've also partnered with our F&A department to actually start the journey to ISO certification. In a nutshell, that is what we have been able to do. But taking you back to our ratios, it's evident that our female are more than male. I think the support that did this interchanged, but we have 58% female and 42% male, and as a result of that, yeah, exactly. So as a result of that, we've also been able to take care of our working mothers, because our highest age group is between 25 to 35. And in 2024, we opened the IDI Nurture Center, which you will have a chance to visit while you're at MKC. We had plans to open up one on the Mulago campus, but those plans are subject to approval of our hosts, which is the National Referral Hospital. But this has enabled working parents or working mothers in particular to carry on with breastfeeding while at work, but also focus on the job. And above all, encourage them to bring their little ones and support in child development. I thank you very much.
Last and yeah, moreover, one slide. All protocol observed. You're most welcome, our inaugural executive director, Professor Keith, and the wife, Penny. Yeah, I stand before you as not the small Richard you left, but now a big Richard. So let's go for that. Yeah. Yeah, so Keith saw me when I was very small, but now you're seeing me a big man in a suit and a tie. Yes, so and a tie, yes. Yeah, I used to put on ties. That's why I had to remember this tie and put it on. So yeah, basically information services, as you recall, you left it when it was forming in the times of Kayondo. It has gone through stages to Peter 27 there as you're leaving. And to date, I'm overseeing the team. So IS looks at after 3 sections, of course. It looks at the data management unit. It looks at the IT unit. It looks at knowledge management, library, in that case, and also it looks at software development. So as members we are presenting here, you realize that I may be the only backbone of all these programs and all these things that they have been talking about. And interesting. I think I'm the yeah. So, but basically, to take you through some of the things we've done. Yes. So basically, in terms of infrastructure, you've had we spread across the entire country, meaning that the IT backbone has to be strong enough. As 20 years down the road, the network must have changed. So we've done so many things in terms of network upgrades, and I'll sneak myself in your program to see the robust IT infrastructure behind all these programs you see and how things are supported. But also there are so many new systems which are developed. We're talking of over 15 systems. You left, if mistaken, 1 or 2 or none. But now so many things are happening. There's so many technologies, new tools. As we're talking right now, I don't know, over 100+ people are live streaming you from all over the country. So it means that our systems are in place to support that. Reporting analytics. We have connectivity. As of yesterday, I was able to reach Kalanga just from my desk. So much is happening in terms of technology landscape, and all that's courtesy of that foundation you started. Automation and new aspects of new technologies that are coming on board to facilitate efficiency. Systems are stable, as you may see since morning. I think, as I noted, people are on and glued on the screen. You may not see them right now, but my live streaming guys may show you. So there is so much of uptime and resilience. People are able to work. Cyber security. We're able to live in this global economy when we are free and our data is safe. We've contributed towards the agenda of big data. You may see in McAdam how the infrastructure works. And also more is that we are now trying to go into another journey of digital transformation to see that we go paperless as much as possible and also increase efficiency. So in a nutshell, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I think you left us at 2, we at 11. So we've surpassed even 10. So I'm happy that you've come to witness the small baby you nurtured, and now it's all over, supporting over 1,000+ programs, and also a number of people that we support. I'm keen at time, but as we tour, I'll be, trying to show you some of these things practically, as Bosco noted. We believe in practical things, so soon you're going to see practically how the infrastructure looks like. Thank you.
Wow. I think let's take a moment as the management team to clap for ourselves. I think we have achieved our twofold agenda. One, to infuse Prof. McAdam and his wife a sense of great gratification for the years you invested in this institution. And secondly, to give account, to be accountable. What have we done with the opportunity we have to provide leadership of our teams and to fulfill the mission of the Institute? So, senior management team members, I'm very proud of what we are doing. Thank you for your various contributions. As they say, the sky is the limit. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. The environment is evolving, and with it some challenges. but as we know, challenges provide opportunities. I think would like to have an opportunity to have some interactions based on what you've heard. We don't have a lot of time, but I think it's a moment to have some interaction, get your initial thoughts before we spend some time looking at particular stations. Do we have a microphone that can, yes. So Keith, feel free, Penny, if you have some observations at this point. And let me also put the team on alert around our integrated report handover, which we'd like to do.
Stand there or here?
You can, yeah, you can actually keep wherever you are. Yes.
Andrew, I'm humbled by what I've heard today. I'm just amazed at the way this institution not only has grown but has thrived. And it's thrived because of people, very special people, and you're a very special set of people who made this institute happen. So there are many things I'd love to sit and talk with each of the speakers about today. Unfortunately, that's not going to be possible. But every one of those presentations would have 10 questions from me about how you do it. And just to pick up on the people side, this is a massive job.
It is.
To look after.
It is a massive job.
To look after 3,400 people. And it's through good times, but also through bad times. That requires very special people skills. And times aren't always good. They sometimes go not so good. And I know recently with the change in US policy, that has potentially a very big impact on many things. And yet, what I see is some extremely competent and human people. By human, I mean people with love. And the ability to manage this group is a big task, so I salute you for lifetime learning of all the staff. And I notice that many of you have grown into positions of great authority internationally. Those growths have happened within the institution, and to find so many people that I still know in an institution which has evolved so fast is extraordinary. Yes. Quite extraordinary to come back 20 years after leaving.
Yeah.
A very exciting period of my life it was here too. But to find so many people still thrilled by what they're doing because it means so much to them and the country, the people, continent we serve. So I'm thrilled by what I've heard. I think the evolution is very healthy. I think the whole new area of looking after emerging infections and all that means, I mean, it's a massive job to take this on. And now suddenly we're involved with looking after hypertension and obesity and diabetes and metabolic syndrome. These are big areas, but I applaud and agree that these are important areas to take seriously, because now we saw Simon downstairs. When I last saw him, he was very sick, but now he's a picture of health. What a joy that is. You know, that's why we're doing what we're doing, isn't it? It's for the joy of seeing that this disease that the Institute started to try and improve has actually managed to look after, care for, and love a lot of people. So I applaud you for that. I think it's a most wonderful goal, and really urge you to redouble your efforts, which are great already. Are there any parts where I thought, gosh, you're stretching yourselves a bit? A little bit. You are. But then the world is changing. And it doesn't stay still. And if the Institute doesn't change, then the Institute won't survive. But if the Institute changes, and you've had some quite talented people who've started the institution and have matured into this big tree that now has big branches which cover a lot of land. So I'm amazed at your accomplishments. I applaud you. And Andrew, I'm very thrilled to see you leading this effort. Leaders don't just happen, they're grown. And I'm sure that the personnel department is making sure that this is a lifetime learning institution, so that everyone in the institution is improving and gets every chance to learn, to get better, to be more empathetic, and in the end to love the friends we serve. And for Penny and me to come back here is a huge joy. I can't tell you. I think Simon and what's her name from downstairs that we met? Susan? Christine, I mean, to see those two alive is to me a miracle. But it's a miracle of science, and it's a miracle of human beings like all of you who've made it happen. So here's to you. Well done. You know, am I allowed 2 more minutes? Okay, I'm going to tell you about me now. Yeah. Because it's different, and I've evolved also. But after coming here, one of the things that really taught me a lot was the creativity initiative in the clinic. And I got back to England, and I was asked by the head of the Royal College of Physicians to give an inaugural lecture, because I had a role, a pro bono role at the Royal College of Physicians, which included being in charge of Africa for the Royal College of Physicians. And he said, could you give a talk on AIDS in Africa? And I said, sure, I'd be delighted to do that from my experience here and the Gambia. And I was going to give a talk on AIDS in Africa, but 2 days before I said, this is my one chance to talk about the creativity initiative. So I said creativity in healthcare I would speak on. So many people came to hear about AIDS in Africa, an entire auditorium. And instead, I spoke on creativity in healthcare, and I told the story of IDI, according to me at the time. At the end of my talk, which was very well received, by the way, the president came up to me and said, do you normally give one title for a talk, get everyone to come in the room, and then speak on something entirely different? I thought he was going to wrap my knuckles with a ruler. You know how they used to do that? But he didn't. He said, thank goodness you did that, because I do gardening in prisons at the weekend. This is the president of the college. And he said, we think that people who are creative are more easily rehabilitated to the community. Anyway, he said, why don't you try and help us do something in the health service which reflects creativity in healthcare? And he said, you can go into any area you like. Anyway, I spent about 2.5 years thinking about what I would work on that involved creativity. And in the end, ended up on focusing on dementia, which is a huge wave, a massive tsunami facing the world at the moment. As we age and get older, the amount of dementia grows enormously. In England now, just in Britain, there are 1 million people living with dementia. In the world, it's something like 55 million. And the strange thing is that people living with dementia might not recognize their spouse or their children, but if you play them music from the right era of their life, they are happy. And some of them can even sing all the words of the songs, and they can stand up and dance, rather like we saw down there. The Creativity Initiative is now really active. This is a Ugandan invention, really active internationally. What we formed a charity called Music for My Mind, and that charity is small, but we're doing research. We first of all found that if you looked at the music from 1940 to 1980, the popular music, whether you were in Italy or in the Sessi Islands or wherever you were, the music that was common in those areas at the time. And we found that in everyone of every age, the music they remember is from their teenage years, from the ages of 13 to 19. Is that true? Okay, so your music that you used to know from 13 to 19 and dance to and have hormones to and all that stuff, you know, that's the one you remember. So we now are able to make a favorite playlist for people living with dementia by going back to their teenage years. And strangely, the symptoms of dementia, which are often anxiety, depression, distress, go away. I mean, they don't, of course the disease doesn't get better, but managing the disease gets better. So I tell you this story because we're now going through some of the strategic moves that we've noted here today. So we're trying to use AI to work with people. So we play a person living with dementia. Remember, we used to say people with HIV, and then we said people living with HIV to make the point that they weren't dead, they were living. Well, it's the same with dementia. It's people living with dementia. It's stigmatizing. Families are very distraught by it. And the interesting thing I have found is that I start to talk your language. So AI now is the answer to a lot of things. And we use AI to try and pick up facial expressions and movement of hands and feet to detect which bit of music they really respond to. So we play 90 bits of music, 30 seconds each on Spotify, and the person is filmed at the same time, and the film is then analyzed using an AI model that we've developed, so we can pick then the favorite music playlist of someone who can no longer remember what music they liked at all. And that has a big effect. So I applaud the IDI for this entire initiative, which I've spent the last 20 years doing since I left here.
Wow. When music for my mind becomes big, we'll send an invoice. Yes. Keith, it's been very heartening to hear how your journey has also influenced your life after IDI. So colleagues, the time is fast spent. We'd like to continue this interactive session. I think we'll make some time for more interaction when we go across. So I'm going to close this session here so that we get a very pointed tour. I think the highlight is the core lab. I hope the team is ready. And I would like to thank the Molago team for hosting us. PCT, research, and the core lab. Thank you so much. The program continues, but I think we'll get an interruption in the live stream until we cross over. So thank you, everyone. Okay. Before we actually disperse and before the cameras are put off, we'll do the photo across. But we wanted at this moment to invite the head of F&A to hand over a special issue of the IDI integrated report at this moment while we are on this campus. And I hope the cameras are ready. It's over there. To hand over. We can do it retrospectively. To be presented. And it's for the dinner. Let's get the microphone so that they can mic people also get it. Oh, did you take it? Let's use this one. Can you hold?
I'm cutting this cake, but realizing that the last time I cut a cake here might have been when I was about this size, growing up in Kampala. And my dad was the surgeon at Malaga for a long time. And he liked to call himself Mac the Knife. So this is the second generation Mac the Knife. I'm going to make a wish though.
Okay. There are no candles too.
I'll still make a wish. Come back often.
Yeah. There you go.
Thank you. Who's the expert?
The ladies.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, how are we doing?
Badly.
But we saw both we could have the cake, we can carry the cake over there so that we do the tour. Are you okay? Yeah, we eat it over there. And we
Yes, that's the lab when you go out.
So both